Captain Han Ji-woo stood on the bridge of the Horizon's Promise and watched the stars. He had dreamed of this moment his entire life. Humanity's first ship to travel faster than light, their first journey beyond the solar system, their first chance to meet other intelligent life in the universe. The ship hummed quietly around him. 50 crew members shared this historic voyage. Among them was Dr. Kang Mirai, a brilliant scientist who studied alien life. She stood beside him now, her eyes wide with wonder as they approached the Kepler 442 system. "Captain, we're receiving a signal," said Yoon Dae-hyun from the communication station. The young engineer's hands trembled slightly. "It's not human." Ji-woo felt his heart race. This was it. First contact. He straightened his uniform and nodded. "Put it on screen." The main display flickered. Instead of a message, massive ships appeared around them. 12 vessels, each one 5 times larger than the Horizon's Promise. They were dark and angular, covered in weapons that tracked the small human ship. The design spoke of power and intimidation. "They just appeared out of nowhere," Dae-hyun whispered. "Their FTL technology is far beyond ours." A face appeared on the screen. It was not human. The alien had 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern. Its skin was pale gray and covered in ridges. When it spoke, the words came through in perfect English, translated by technology humanity could barely imagine. "Primitive vessel, you have entered space claimed by the Velkari Dominion. I am Warlord Thexnar. You will surrender immediately and provide coordinates to your homeworld." Ji-woo swallowed hard. This was not the friendly first contact humanity had hoped for. "I am Captain Han Ji-woo of Earth. We come in peace. We did not know this space was claimed." "We mean no harm." The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. It made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peace is irrelevant. The Dominion has ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. We have brought order to 400 species. You will join them or you will die. Give us your homeworld's location." Dr. Kang Mirai stepped forward. "We are explorers. We only want to learn and share knowledge. Surely there is room in the galaxy for cooperation." "Knowledge?" Thexanar's face twisted. "You travel in a ship that barely functions. Your weapons are primitive. Your technology is laughable. You have nothing we need. Submit or be destroyed." Ji-woo felt anger rising in his chest. He had spent 20 years training for this mission. He had left behind his wife and daughter. He had crossed the stars with hope in his heart. And now this creature demanded surrender without even attempting diplomacy. "We are a free people," Ji-woo said quietly. "We bow to no one. We will return to Earth and report this meeting to our government. If the Dominion wishes to establish diplomatic relations, we welcome it. But we will not surrender." The warlord's 4 eyes focused on him with what looked like surprise. "In 3,000 years, no species has refused the Dominion. You are either very brave or very stupid." "Perhaps both," Ji-woo replied. "But we are also human, and humans do not kneel." Thexnar stared at him for a long moment. Then that sound came again, the one that might have been laughter. "Very well. I will grant you something special. I will let you watch your ship die slowly. Your crew will have time to understand their mistake. And then I will take your navigation data from your wreckage and find your Earth. We will teach your species what happens to those who refuse the Dominion." The screen went dark. Alarms blared throughout the Horizon's Promise. "They're powering weapons," Dae-hyun shouted. "All 12 ships! Evasive maneuvers!" Ji-woo commanded. "Full power to shields. Prepare to jump to FTL." The ship lurched sideways as the pilot threw them into a desperate dodge. The first volley of alien weapons missed by meters. The second volley did not miss. The Horizon's Promise shook violently. Lights flickered. Somewhere in the ship people screamed. "Shields at 40%, Dae-hyun reported. "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4. FTL drive is charging but needs 2 more minutes." 2 minutes. Ji-woo knew they did not have 2 minutes. The alien ships were repositioning, surrounding them. This was not a battle. It was an execution. "Dr. Kang," Ji-woo said urgently. "Get to the escape pods now." "Captain, I won't leave the crew. That's an order." Ji-woo grabbed her shoulders. "Someone has to warn Earth. Someone has to tell them what's coming. It has to be you." Mirai's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. She ran from the bridge as another impact shook the ship. "All hands, abandon ship," Ji-woo broadcast. "Get to the escape pods. Move." The crew began evacuating. Ji-woo stayed at his post, manually piloting the dying ship to give them time. Another blast tore through the engineering section. The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. "Captain, this is Dr. Kang. I'm in Pod 7. "Captain, please, launch all pods now," Jiwoo interrupted. "That's my final order." He pushed the button himself. 10 escape pods shot away from the Horizon's Promise in different directions. The Velkari ships tracked them with weapons. They destroyed 9 pods instantly. Only one escaped into FTL, too small and fast for them to catch. "Pod 7. Mirai's pod, Jiwoo smiled sadly. At least someone would make it home. The Velkari stopped firing. They approached the crippled Horizon's Promise slowly. Jiwoo watched them on the failing monitors. They were not interested in survivors. They docked with his ship and began downloading data from the computers. It took them 3 minutes to extract everything they needed, including Earth's location. Texanar's face appeared on the screen one last time. "Your bravery was meaningless. In 6 months, the Dominion fleet will arrive at your Earth. We will give your people the same choice we gave you. They will be wiser than you were." "Don't count on it," Jiwoo said. "You've never met anyone like us before. We have conquered 400 species. What makes you special?" Jiwoo thought of his daughter. He thought of Earth, beautiful and blue, full of people who dreamed of the stars. He thought of humanity's long history of fighting against impossible odds. "You're about to find out," he said. The final blast destroyed the Horizon's Promise completely. The wreckage tumbled through space, just another piece of debris in the endless dark. The Velkari fleet turned and began plotting a course to Earth, confident in their superiority. They had done this 400 times before. They expected this time to be no different. They were wrong, but they would not realize their mistake until it was far too late. The Velkari Dominion had ruled the stars for 3,000 years. But they had just made their first fatal error. They had challenged humanity, and humanity was about to teach the galaxy a lesson that would echo for generations. The war had begun. Dr. Kang Mirai's escape pod tumbled through space for 3 days before Earth's defense satellites found it. When they pulled her from the pod, she was dehydrated and exhausted, but her eyes burned with determination. She had witnessed the death of 50 crew members. She had watched Captain Han Jiwoo sacrifice himself, and she carried a warning that could save or doom humanity. Within hours, she stood before President Choi Sun-hee in the United Earth Government headquarters. Military leaders filled the room. Admiral Park Tae-ho sat with his arms crossed, his weathered face grim. General Kim Bong-wan stood by the window, staring at the city below. Dr. Lee Hee-jin, Earth's top physicist, listened intently as Mirai told her story. "They call themselves the Velkari Dominion," Mirai explained. Her voice shook but did not break. "They have ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They have conquered 400 species, and now they are coming for us. How long do we have?" President Choi asked. She was a small woman with steel in her spine. She had led Earth through economic collapse and environmental disaster. But this was different. This was extinction. 6 months. Maybe less. Their technology is centuries beyond ours. A single Velkari ship could destroy our entire fleet. The room fell silent. General Kim spoke first. "Then we have already lost." "No." Admiral Park stood up. "We haven't lost until we stop fighting. We cannot match their technology ship for ship, so we do not fight on their terms. We fight on ours." "Explain," President Choi said. Park walked to the holographic display in the center of the room. He brought up a map of the solar system. "The Velkari have conquered 400 species using the same strategy. Overwhelming force. Superior technology. They arrive, they demand surrender, they win. It has worked for 3,000 years because no one has ever forced them to adapt." "What are you suggesting?" Dr. Lee asked. "Guerrilla warfare. Asymmetric tactics. We turn our solar system into a trap. We use what we have, not what we wish we had." Commander Shin Woo-jin entered the room. He was a special forces officer, lean and dangerous. "I have studied every recorded human conflict from the last 1,000 years. From ancient Vietnam to the Mars Rebellion. The principle is always the same. A weaker force can defeat a stronger one if they refuse to fight conventionally." President Choi looked around the room. "You are talking about a strategy that has never been tested in space combat. Against an enemy we do not understand. With weapons we barely have." "Yes," Admiral Park said simply. "Because it is our only chance." The president closed her eyes. When she opened them, her decision was made. "Very well. I am authorizing Project Defiance. Admiral Park, You have complete authority over military operations. General Kim, begin preparing civilians for ground resistance. Dr. Lee, I need weapons the Valkyrie have never seen before. Commander Shin, teach us how to be ghosts. The meeting ended. Each leader left to begin an impossible task. But Dr. Kang Mirai stayed. Madam President, there is something else. When I studied the Valkyrie during their transmission, I noticed something. They were surprised when Captain Jiwoo refused surrender. In 3,000 years, this had never happened before. What does that mean? It means they are psychologically dependent on intimidation. They expect submission. What happens to a military force that has never faced real resistance? That has won every battle for 3,000 years? President Choi understood. They become complacent. Exactly. They will underestimate us, and that might be the only advantage we have. The next 6 months transformed Earth and its colonies. Factories that once built civilian ships now produced weapons day and night. Mars, Venus, and the outer colonies became armed fortresses. But the real work was invisible. Admiral Park oversaw the construction of hidden weapons platforms throughout the solar system. They were disguised as asteroids, space debris, abandoned satellites. Each one was automated and heavily armed. The Valkyrie would enter the solar system thinking it was undefended. They would be wrong. Dr. Lee Haijin worked 20-hour days in her laboratory beneath Geneva. She took humanity's experimental weapons research and pushed it to the breaking point. Kinetic kill vehicles that could accelerate to near light speed. Quantum disruption fields that scrambled enemy targeting systems. And something she called the Prometheus Array, though she would not explain what it did. Not yet, she said. We might only get one chance to use it. General Kim Bong-won did something that seemed impossible. He trained millions of civilians in resistance tactics. Every city on Mars had hidden weapons caches. Every space station had escape routes and ambush points. If the Valkyrie landed ground forces, they would face a population where everyone was a potential enemy. Commander Shin Woo-jin assembled teams of specialists. Engineers, hackers, pilots who were just crazy enough to try suicide missions. He trained them in boarding actions, sabotage, and deep strike operations. The Valkyrie have never seen human special forces, he told them. We are going to teach them fear. Earth sent reconnaissance probes along the projected Valkyrie route. They were tiny and stealthy, almost impossible to detect. They sent back data on Valkyrie ship movements, fleet composition, and tactics. The information was studied obsessively. Admiral Park noticed patterns. They travel in rigid formations. They follow doctrine. Every ship has an assigned role, and they never deviate from it. That is a weakness, Commander Shin said. Rigid tactics can be predicted, and what can be predicted can be countered. As the 6-month deadline approached, Earth held its breath. President Choi addressed the planet one final time. In 2 days, the Valkyrie fleet will arrive. They expect us to surrender. They expect us to kneel. They have conquered 400 species this way. But we are not like other species. We are human, and we have fought impossible battles before. She paused, looking directly into the camera. 3,000 years ago, the Valkyrie began their empire. They believe their dominance is natural. They believe resistance is futile. But they have never faced a species that has survived ice ages, world wars, and planetary disasters. They have never faced a species that wrote poetry about defiance and sang songs about freedom. They have never faced a species that would rather die standing than live kneeling. Around Earth and throughout the colonies, people watched. Families held each other. Soldiers checked their weapons. Engineers activated hidden systems that had been built over months of desperate work. Tomorrow, the Valkyrie will learn something new. President Choi continued. They will learn that the stars do not belong to the strong. They belong to the brave. And humanity, whatever our flaws, has never lacked courage. Admiral Park stood in the command center beneath Luna. Screens showed every corner of the solar system. His fleet was positioned and ready. The hidden platforms were armed. The civilian population was prepared. Sir, long-range sensors are detecting something, an officer reported. Multiple contacts. Coming out of FTL at the Kuiper Belt. Park felt his stomach tighten. This was it. He opened a channel to all Earth forces. All units, this is Admiral Park. The enemy is here. Remember your training. Trust your instincts. Fight for each other. And show these bastards what happens when they threaten humanity. On Mars, Sergeant Oh Min-seok checked his rifle one more time. Around him, his squad prepared their positions. The city had been rigged with explosives and traps. If the Valkyrie landed here, They would pay for every meter. In the asteroid belt, Lieutenant Bei Ji-young sat in the cockpit of her fighter. It was small and fast, built for hit-and-run attacks. Around her, hundreds of other pilots waited. They had trained for this. They were ready. Throughout the solar system, humanity held its weapons and waited. The Valkyrie were coming, confident and arrogant. They had done this 400 times. They expected fear and submission. Instead, they were about to walk into a trap set by a species that had spent 6 months preparing to do the impossible. The Valkyrie ruled the stars, but they had made one fatal mistake. They had given humanity time to get ready. The Valkyrie subjugation fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of humanity's solar system. 200 warships, each one a masterpiece of weapons and armor. They had conquered countless worlds with such fleets. This would be no different. Warlord Thexanar stood on the bridge of his flagship, remembering the human captain who had refused to surrender 6 months ago. That foolish man was dead now. His entire crew was dead. Soon his whole species would kneel or join them in death. "Scan the system," Thexanar commanded. "Locate their military forces." His tactical officer studied the displays. "Sir, we detect minimal defenses. Some satellites around their home world. A few dozen small ships. Nothing that poses a threat." Thexanar felt satisfaction. As always, the primitives had not prepared adequately. They never did. "Open a transmission. Let them hear their doom." Throughout the solar system, every human receiver picked up the message. Thexanar's 4 eyes stared out from a million screens. "Humans of Earth, I am Warlord Thexanar of the Valkyrie Dominion. 6 months ago, you refused our generous offer of submission. That was your mistake. Now you have one final chance. Surrender completely, or we will destroy every ship, every station, every city you possess. You have 1 hour to decide." The transmission ended. Silence filled space. The Valkyrie fleet waited, engines idling, weapons ready. They had done this 400 times. The answer was always the same. Fear won, survival instinct won. Within the hour, the humans would beg for mercy. The hour passed. No response came. Thexanar felt the first stirring of confusion. Send the message again. Perhaps they did not understand. But before his communications officer could act, Admiral Park Taeho's voice filled the void. "Warlord Thexanar, we received your message. Here is our response. Nothing happened for 3 seconds. Then the solar system exploded into violence. The weapons platforms hidden throughout the Kuiper Belt activated simultaneously. What the Valkyrie had assumed were asteroids suddenly came alive with weapons fire. Missiles streaked toward the fleet from 100 different directions. Kinetic kill vehicles, accelerated to tremendous speeds, tore through space like bullets from God. The Valkyrie formation shattered immediately. Ships that had been arranged in perfect order scattered as projectiles moving at relativistic speeds, punched through their shields like they were paper. 3 capital ships died in the first 30 seconds, torn apart by impacts they never saw coming. "Evasive action," Thexanar screamed. "Return fire. Where are those weapons coming from?" "Everywhere, sir." "The entire Kuiper Belt is armed. We are detecting hundreds of platforms." Engineer Nam Sung-ho watched from the control center on Luna as his designs performed exactly as planned. He had spent 6 months building automated weapon stations and hiding them throughout the solar system. The Valkyrie had assumed the humans would defend from their homeworld. Instead, humanity had turned their entire solar system into a weapon. Phase 1 complete, Nam reported to Admiral Park. Enemy formation broken. 43 kills confirmed. Phase 2 is go. In the asteroid belt, Lieutenant Bei Ji-young received the signal. "All wings, this is Wing Commander. Execute hit and run, make them chase shadows." Her fighter squadron launched from hidden bases inside asteroids. They were tiny compared to Valkyrie ships, but they were fast and maneuverable. Bei led her wing straight toward a Valkyrie destroyer, fired missiles at point-blank range, then dove into the asteroid field before the enemy could respond. The Valkyrie destroyer tried to follow. It was a mistake. The massive warship could not navigate the dense field of rocks. It clipped an asteroid and tumbled, shields failing. 3 more human fighters appeared from different directions and finished it with precision strikes. Throughout the belt, this scene repeated dozens of times. The Valkyrie had superior ships, but they were fighting in a maze. The humans knew every hiding spot, every approach vector, every escape route. They appeared from nowhere, struck hard, and vanished before the enemy could retaliate. "This is impossible," Thexanar's tactical officer reported. "They are too fast. We cannot track them." We cannot predict their attacks. Thexnar understood what was happening. The humans were not fighting a proper battle. They were ambushing, running, hiding. This was not honorable warfare. This was not how civilized species fought. Pull back to Neptune, he ordered. We will regroup and plan a proper assault. But Dr. Lee Heejin had anticipated this. As the Velkari fleet retreated, they passed through a section of space that seemed empty. It was not empty. Quantum disruption mines, invisible to Velkari sensors, activated as the ships passed. Every Velkari targeting system went haywire simultaneously. Weapons fired at random. Shields dropped. Ships collided with each other in the chaos. The fleet's perfect coordination dissolved into confusion. Admiral Park watched the carnage from his command center. Now, all forces, full assault. Hit them while they are blind. Earth's entire defense fleet, which had been hiding behind Luna, accelerated into the battle. They were outnumbered and outgunned. But the Velkari were disoriented and scattered. For a brief window, the odds were almost even. Commander Shin Woo-jin led the assault ships. These were not warships. They were repurposed mining vessels, cargo haulers, even civilian yachts. But each one was packed with volunteers and weapons. They screamed into the Velkari formation at full thrust. All ships boarding formation. Shin commanded. Maglock to their hulls. Breach and cause chaos. It was insane. It was desperate. It was exactly the kind of tactic the Velkari had never encountered in 3,000 years. Human ships crashed into Velkari destroyers and locked on with magnetic clamps. Cutting torches opened holes in the armored hulls. Human soldiers poured inside. The Velkari had never experienced boarding actions. Their ships were designed to fight at distance, not to repel invaders. Human soldiers moved through corridors, sabotaging systems, killing crew, and generally creating havoc. Several Velkari ships went dark as their reactors were destroyed from within. On Titan, Sergeant Oh Min-seok watched the battle on tactical displays. His squad was ready for ground invasion. But so far, the Velkari had not landed any troops. Good. That meant Admiral Park's plan was working. Sergeant, we are getting reports, his communications officer said. The Velkari are retreating to Neptune orbit. They have lost 60 ships. The fleet is in disorder. Min-seok allowed himself a small smile. 60 ships, out of 200. In the first major engagement. That was not just a victory. That was a statement. At Neptune, Warlord Thexnar assessed the disaster. His fleet had been savaged. His perfect formation was destroyed. His ships were damaged and his crew was terrified. In 3,000 years of Velkari military history, nothing like this had ever happened. How did they do this? He demanded. They are primitives. His tactical officer had no answer. The humans had not fought with honor. They had not engaged in proper fleet combat. They had cheated. They had turned the entire solar system into a trap. They had used tactics that no civilized species would consider, and it had worked. We must call for reinforcements, his first officer suggested. The High Command must know that this species is dangerous. Thexnar wanted to refuse. To call for help was to admit failure, but he had no choice. Send the message. Request immediate reinforcement. Tell the High Command that we have encountered significant resistance. The message was sent. It would take weeks to reach the Velkari homeworlds. Weeks more for reinforcements to arrive. Until then, Thexnar was trapped in this cursed system with an enemy that refused to fight properly. Admiral Park received the intelligence within hours. Human reconnaissance drones had intercepted the Velkari transmission. They are calling for help, he told President Choi. We hurt them badly, but this is just the first round. How long do we have? Months, maybe as much as a year. But they will come back. And next time they will come with everything they have. President Choi nodded. Then we use the time we have. We learn from this battle, we improve our tactics, and we prepare for round 2. Throughout the solar system, humanity celebrated its first victory, but every soldier, every pilot, every leader knew the truth. They had won the battle through surprise and preparation. The next fight would be harder. The Velkari had underestimated humanity once. They would not make that mistake again. But they had also learned something important. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Dominion had faced an enemy that could make them bleed. And humanity was just getting started. 18 months after the first battle, the war had become a grinding stalemate. The Velkari had received reinforcements and established a blockade around the outer solar system. Humanity controlled everything inside Jupiter's orbit, but they were trapped. Neither side could deliver a killing blow. Captain Hong Jinsu commanded the strike team that would change everything. His mission was simple in concept, but nearly impossible in execution. Board a Valkyrie destroyer, capture it intact, and bring it home. Humanity needed that technology. More importantly, they needed to prove it could be done. 2 minutes to intercept, his pilot announced. They were riding in a stealth shuttle, a design that barely worked. It hid them from Valkyrie sensors, but only if they moved slowly and stayed quiet. Hong studied his team. 20 soldiers, the best humanity had. They had trained for 6 months for this one mission. Half of them would probably die. They all knew it. They came anyway. Remember the plan, Hong said quietly. Fast and surgical. We take the bridge, engineering, and weapons control simultaneously. Once we have those, the ship is ours. The shuttle drifted alongside the Valkyrie destroyer. In the vast darkness of space, they were invisible. Magnetic clamps attached to the hull with barely a sound. Cutting torches began to work. 3 minutes later, they were inside. The Valkyrie never knew what hit them. Hong's team moved through the ship like ghosts, killing silently, moving fast. The aliens were not prepared for close-quarters combat. They were warriors who fought from behind consoles and targeting computers. When humans came at them with knives and close-range weapons in narrow corridors, they panicked. Bridge secured, Hong reported. Around him, dead Valkyrie lay at their stations. Engineering team status? Engineering secured. We have control of the reactor. Weapons control secured. Main systems are ours. Hong allowed himself to breathe. They had done it. A full Valkyrie destroyer captured almost intact. Pilot, bring the shuttle around. We are going home. The captured destroyer, renamed the Defiance, limped back to Mars. It was a treasure beyond measure. Earth's engineers and scientists swarmed over it immediately. They studied the faster-than-light drive, the weapon systems, the power generation. They learned Dr. An Yuna had a different focus. She was a xenopsychologist, and she studied the Valkyrie themselves. She interviewed prisoners, analyzed their culture, and searched for weaknesses. What she found surprised her. The Valkyrie are psychologically fragile, she reported to Admiral Park. 3,000 years of unbroken victory has made them dependent on their superiority. When faced with chaos or unexpected resistance, they freeze. Their military training emphasizes doctrine over adaptation. How do we use that? We do what we have been doing. We fight unpredictably. We use tactics they cannot counter. Every time they expect one thing, we do another. We break their mental model of how war should work. Park understood. The Valkyrie were not just technologically superior. They were psychologically invested in that superiority. Take it away and they crumbled. But the war was far from one-sided. 2 months after Hong captured the destroyer, the Valkyrie launched a massive assault on Mars. They came with landing forces, orbital bombardment, and overwhelming firepower. The outer defenses shattered. Within hours, Valkyrie troops controlled major cities. Corporal Ko Yunji watched the invasion from her apartment in New Seoul. The Valkyrie were efficient and ruthless. They killed resistance fighters on sight. They established checkpoints. They began implementing occupation protocols they had used on 400 other worlds. What they did not expect was that the entire civilian population was armed and trained. General Kim Bong-won's preparations paid off immediately. Yunji waited until the Valkyrie patrol passed her building. Then she armed the explosives she had planted months ago. The blast killed 6 enemy soldiers and destroyed an armored vehicle. Before reinforcements could arrive, she was gone, melting into the population. This scene repeated across Mars. The Valkyrie held the cities, but they could not hold them safely. Every building might be rigged to explode. Every civilian might be carrying a weapon. Every street corner might hide an ambush. The occupation became a nightmare. Valkyrie soldiers stopped patrolling alone. They stopped entering buildings without full tactical gear. They stopped trusting anything. The stress was enormous. Casualties mounted not from major battles, but from 1,000 small attacks that never stopped. This is not conquest, the Valkyrie commander on Mars reported to Warlord Thexnar. This is a meat grinder. We lose soldiers every day. The humans do not fight honorably. They do not face us in battle. They hide and strike and disappear. Thexnar had no answer. The occupation of Mars was supposed to break human morale. Instead, it was draining Valkyrie resources and manpower. Every soldier on Mars was a soldier who could not fight in space. Commander Shin Woo-jin took advantage of this. While the Valkyrie were distracted with Mars, he led deep strike missions against their supply lines. Human ships equipped with captured FTL technology began hitting Valkyrie logistics bases. The strike on Supply Station Gamma 7 was typical. Shin's team jumped in, destroyed the station's defenses, sabotaged the fuel depots, and jumped out before reinforcements arrived. The Valkyrie lost a month's worth of supplies in 15 minutes. The enemy is adapting, Admiral Park observed. They are learning to guard their supply lines better. Then we adapt faster, Shin replied. That is what humans do. The biggest adaptation came from the reverse-engineered Valkyrie technology. Earth's engineers, working from the captured destroyer, built humanity's first true FTL warship. It was crude compared to Valkyrie designs, but it worked. More importantly, it let humanity take the war beyond the solar system. The strike on the Valkyrie shipyard at Proxima Station was humanity's first offensive operation outside the solar system. 6 human ships equipped with FTL drives appeared without warning. They unleashed every weapon they had on the shipyard and jumped away before the Valkyrie fleet could respond. The damage was significant. More importantly, the message was clear. Earth could now reach out and touch the enemy anywhere. The Valkyrie were no longer safe in their own territory. The Valkyrie High Command finally understood what they were facing. This was not a primitive species to be conquered. This was a dangerous predator that refused to die. Warlord Thexnar was recalled to the homeworlds. His failure was considered complete. He was executed as an example. Grand Admiral Vexthor took command. He was the Dominion's greatest military leader, the architect of 100 successful conquests. He studied the human tactics carefully. He noted their creativity, their aggression, their refusal to accept defeat. This species is unique, he told the High Command. They do not fight to win. They fight to survive. And that makes them infinitely dangerous. We cannot defeat them with conventional forces. What do you propose? The High Council asked. Total war. We commit our full war fleet, 2,000 ships. We do not blockade. We do not occupy. We destroy. We eliminate this threat before they spread their tactics to other species. The High Council agreed. They had no choice. Humanity had done the impossible. They had survived 18 months against the Dominion. They had captured Valkyrie ships. They had struck Valkyrie bases. They had turned Mars into a graveyard for occupation forces. Worse, word was spreading throughout the galaxy. Other conquered species heard about humanity's resistance. Whispers of rebellion began on a dozen worlds. The Valkyrie could not allow this to continue. The war fleet was assembled. Every available ship was recalled. Every veteran crew was mobilized. This would be the largest military operation in Valkyrie history. They would end the human problem once and for all. Dr. Kang Mirai, studying intelligence reports, saw the fleet gathering. Admiral, they are coming with everything they have. 2,000 ships. Maybe more. They want to end this. Admiral Park nodded slowly. He had expected this. Humanity's success had forced the Valkyrie to commit fully. The next battle would not be a skirmish. It would be everything. How long do we have? 3 months. They are gathering forces from across their empire. Park stood and looked at the holographic display of the solar system, his home, his species, everything they had built. In 3 months, it might all be destroyed. Then we have 3 months to prepare our final defense, Dr. Lee. Is the Prometheus array ready? Dr. Lee Hygen hesitated. It is experimental. We have never tested it at full power. It might not work at all, or it might work too well. Will it give us a chance? If it works, yes. If it does not work, we die anyway. Park made his decision. Prepare the array and prepare everything else we have. When the Valkyrie come, we throw everything at them. No holding back. No reserves. All or nothing. Throughout the solar system, humanity mobilized for the final battle. Every ship was armed. Every weapon was readied. Every soldier prepared to die if necessary. They had fought for 18 months. They had bled and suffered and refused to surrender. Now they would face the full might of an empire that had ruled for 3,000 years. The odds were impossible. Victory seemed unlikely. But humanity had never been good at accepting impossible odds. The Valkyrie were coming to end the war. What they did not know was that humanity was ready to make them pay for every victory they had ever achieved. The Valkyrie war fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like a metallic storm. 2,000 warships filled the void, the largest military force ever assembled in the galaxy's recorded history. Grand Admiral Vexthor stood on the bridge of his massive flagship and felt satisfaction. This time there would be no mistakes. The humans would be crushed completely. All ships maintain formation, Vexthor commanded. Advance toward the inner system. Destroy anything that moves. On Earth, President Choi Sun-hee addressed humanity one final time. Her face appeared on every screen in every bunker, on every ship preparing for battle. She looked tired but unbroken. My fellow humans, the enemy is here. They come with thousands of ships to finish what they started. They believe they will win because they have always won. They believe we will break because every other species has broken. They do not understand us at all. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was steel. We have fought for 18 months. We have bled. We have lost Mars, lost ships, lost friends and family. But we have not lost hope. We have not lost our will to be free. The Velkari came to make us kneel. Today we teach them that some species would rather die free than live as slaves. Admiral Park Tae-ho watched the enemy fleet advance. They moved in perfect formation exactly as doctrine demanded. Even now, after 18 months of fighting humanity, they relied on their superiority and their rules. That would be their undoing. All forces, this is Park. Execute final protocol. Show them what humanity can do. The battle began near Jupiter. The Velkari expected the hidden weapons platforms that had devastated their first fleet. They were prepared this time with shields reinforced and point defense active. They swept through the Kuiper Belt methodically, destroying platforms as they found them. But the platforms were a distraction. The real defense was closer to home. As the Velkari fleet reached Jupiter's orbit, the gas giant itself seemed to attack. Weapons platforms hidden in the atmosphere emerged and fired. But more surprising was what came next. The entire asteroid belt, which had been humanity's stronghold, suddenly accelerated. Hundreds of asteroids, fitted with crude engines and packed with explosives, screamed toward the Velkari formation. They were not guided missiles. They were rocks the size of buildings, moving at incredible speeds. The Velkari tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. Dozens of asteroids crashed into ships, punching through shields by sheer kinetic force. The perfect formation shattered. In the chaos, Lieutenant Bae Jeong led her fighter squadrons into the heart of the enemy fleet. All wings weapons free. Make every shot count. Bae's squadron had grown over 18 months. They were veterans now, survivors who had learned every trick of space combat. They dove through the Velkari formation like sharks, targeting engines and weapon systems, causing maximum chaos with minimal exposure. But this time, the Velkari were ready. They had learned. Fighter screens intercepted the human pilots. Bae watched her wingmates die, shot down by superior numbers. The odds were impossible. But she kept fighting, kept firing, kept moving, because that was what humans did. Commander Shin Woo-jin led the boarding teams in their most desperate mission yet. With the Velkari distracted by the fighter attack, he took 20 assault ships straight into the enemy flagship. It was suicide. Everyone knew it. They went anyway. All teams McLaughlin breach. We take their command ship. The assault ships crashed into the massive flagship and clamped on. Cutting torches burned through armor. Human soldiers poured inside, fighting with savage determination. The Velkari defenders were elite troops, the best the Dominion had. But they had never faced humans who had nothing left to lose. Shin's team fought deck by deck, corridor by corridor. Half his soldiers died in the first 10 minutes, but they kept advancing. They reached the bridge levels. Grand Admiral Vexthor received reports of the boarding action with disbelief. They're inside the flagship? How? They crashed ships into us and breached the hull. Deploy all security forces. Kill them all! But Shin's mission was not to capture the flagship. It was to cause chaos at the critical moment. As Velkari troops rushed to repel boarders, other human ships exploited the distraction. Captain Hong Jinsu, commanding a captured Velkari destroyer, led a squadron straight at the command ship's vulnerable reactor section. All ships, concentrate fire. Bring down their flagship. The combined human assault overwhelmed the flagship's defenses. Critical systems failed. The reactor went critical. Commander Shin and his remaining team felt the ship dying around them. They had seconds to evacuate. Most did not make it. The flagship exploded. Grand Admiral Vexthor died without understanding how primitives had killed him. The Velkari fleet suddenly without its supreme commander faltered. Ship captains looked to each other for orders that did not come. Admiral Park saw the moment and seized it. Now activate Prometheus. Deep within Luna, Dr. Lee Hijin initiated the sequence she had built over 18 months. The Prometheus array was based on experimental quantum physics that barely worked in theory. It created localized spatial distortions, areas where the laws of physics went temporarily insane. She had never tested it at full power. She did not know if it would work at all. It worked. The array activated. Space itself twisted near Mars. Velkari ships caught in the distortion field simply stopped working. FTL drives failed. Weapons went offline. Shields collapsed. Hundreds of warships became floating debris in seconds. It worked, Lee shouted. The array is stable. We can maintain it for 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Admiral Park knew it was not enough to destroy 2,000 ships, but it was enough to even the odds. All forces, general attack. Hit the disabled ships now! Earth's defense fleet emerged from hiding and threw themselves at the crippled Velkari vessels. They were still outnumbered. They were still outgunned. But half the enemy fleet was disabled and the other half was in disarray. For the first time, humanity had a chance. The battle became desperate carnage. Ships on both sides died by the dozens. The space around Mars filled with debris and bodies. Lieutenant Bae Ji-young's fighter took a hit that killed her engines. She drifted helplessly as a Velkari destroyer moved to finish her. But before it could fire, a human cruiser rammed the destroyer at full thrust, destroying both ships. Captain Hong Jin-soo found himself facing 3 Velkari ships simultaneously. His destroyer was already damaged and leaking atmosphere. He could run or he could fight. He chose to fight. All weapons, fire everything we have. His ship died in a blaze of glory, taking 2 Velkari vessels with it. On Mars, Corporal Ko Yoon-ji and the resistance fighters emerged from hiding and attacked the Velkari ground forces from behind. The alien troops, already demoralized by the space battle, broke and ran. Mars was liberated in hours of savage fighting, but the battle was far from over. The Prometheus array was failing. Dr. Lee watched the systems overload. Admiral, we have 5 minutes before total shutdown. 5 minutes, Park repeated. The Velkari had lost their flagship, lost half their fleet to the array, lost hundreds of ships to human attacks, but they still had numbers. If they reorganized, they could still win. Then something happened that no one expected. The remaining Velkari fleet began to retreat. Not in order, not in formation, but in panic. Ships broke away and jumped to FTL randomly, fleeing in all directions. Why are they running? An officer asked. Dr. An Yuna, monitoring Velkari communications, had the answer. They are terrified. They came here with overwhelming force and we destroyed half their fleet. They have never experienced losses like this. Their psychological model of warfare has completely collapsed. They do not know how to process defeat. Admiral Park watched the enemy flee. He wanted to order pursuit to finish them, but his fleet was shattered. Most ships were damaged or destroyed. They had won, but barely. Let them go. Let them report what happened here. The battle was over. Earth had survived. Humanity counted the cost. Half the defense fleet was gone. Thousands of soldiers dead. Lieutenant Bae Ji-young had survived but would never fly again. Commander Shin Woo-jin and Captain Hong Jin-soo were among the many who had sacrificed everything. The memorial list would be long, but they had broken the Velkari. The news spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. The species that had ruled for 3,000 years had been defeated by primitives who had barely discovered FTL travel 2 years ago. Dr. Kang Mirei led the diplomatic mission that followed. She traveled to worlds the Velkari had conquered, carrying a simple message. We stood against the Dominion. We refused to kneel, and we survived. If we can do it, so can you. The rebellion started within months. Species that had lived under Velkari rule for centuries suddenly found courage. The Dominion tried to suppress the uprisings, but they were fighting on 100 worlds simultaneously. Their military, already shattered by losses at Earth, could not cope. Within a year, the Velkari Dominion collapsed. 3,000 years of tyranny ended not with a grand battle, but with a whimper as subject species simply refused to obey anymore. 10 years later, Admiral Han Seoyeon stood on Mars at the memorial that bore her father's name. Captain Han Ji-woo, who had died in first contact, who had refused to surrender. His sacrifice had started everything. Around her, the Galactic Coalition prepared for its annual assembly. Earth was a founding member,